Hello, hello, testing for the mic, testing for the audio. Hello, hello, can you hear me, guys? Hello, hello, am I audible? Hello, hello, am I audible? Can you guys reply it in the chat? Hello, welcome everyone to day two of web security, web exploitation. So today we are going to be mainly covering topics about what are databases, MySQL, basics of MySQL, and tools. Now these tools will be mainly, with regards to web security. And before everything, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Shabun, and I will be taking your session today on web exploitation. So, before starting, let's talk. what are databases? Have you ever heard of something called as data? All of us know that data is something that everyone needs. For example, I'm pretty sure most of you guys have your parents working, like working and all, right? So they deal with a lot of data. Let's suppose if they are working as a teacher, for example. So for them, it's good for, like it's necessary for them to keep track of each student that they are teaching, their marks, the marks of each student that they are going to teach, and they will basically keep that track with respect to databases. Because let's suppose this scenario: we are living in ancient times, and your mother or your father is a teacher. They want to keep record of what each student of their class or whoever they teach, what their track record is, how good marks they got, um, in what subject, and like they want to find average or something or give grades and all, right? So sometimes if they write it down on papers and all, they can be misplaced, right? The paper or book or whatever they are going to be using it, which they will physically put in the data into. Data here is marks. Okay. So yeah, they can that can be misplaced. They can like get missing and all, right? So so basically we have a version, software version of it called databases. Now, databases works in the similar methodology that it's a systematic collection of these data. That means that we will have a table, basically table of yes, so table with different columns like what's the student's name or what's the roll number, what marks it got for that subject, and stuff like that. That is what the whole idea of a database is. Now, moving on. Okay. Yeah, we covered the part where why we need databases. Yeah, one more point I would like to explain about is that um, yeah, okay. So one more part I would like to explain about is databases, right? They are efficient because you don't have to keep rewriting it. You can always copy paste things, like maybe a student that let's suppose there's a class, second grade class or something, and there are 48 students there. Each subject teacher wants to have a Excel sheet with marks inputted for that particular subject. Another thing is, if one of the teachers have already made a table with all the information of that student, the student name, roll number, marks, stuff like that, then all she has to do is give it to other teachers so that they can copy paste it. They don't have to put in extra effort to make the file again on their own and stuff. So I hope you guys are clear so far. Is it clear? You guys can tell me any of your doubts in the chat. Okay. I guess we are clear with this, what databases are. So if you guys don't know, InCTF already is up and running. So you guys can go up there in the site and practice challenges. Yeah, practice challenges that are already up on the site. Yeah, that with that you can actually like gain experience and practice, and also apply the sessions, the knowledge that you have gained in these sessions uh, to the challenges. Okay, moving ahead. Yeah, so this is the typical database structure. So there's something called as a database, and that you can think of it as a file cabinet. the whole file cupboard or whatever you have can be considered as a file cabinet. You can assume that as a database. Why? It's because that file can contain a lot of books that you guys would need. Stuff like maybe a book on physics, chemistry, maths, or even crime stories, stuff like that. That essentially is a data. And the file cabinet there, it is holding it, right? So that can be called as a database. So that's the idea about what database is. That's what the database does. It holds the data. And any doubts? Is this clear? Is the ideology clear? Another analogy that we can do with respect to database is if you have used your parents' laptop or seen your parents use laptop, and you might have come across times when your parents would click one folder and then multiple others emerge suddenly when they click it, and then they click again one more, and suddenly more of those, just more file folders pop out of somewhere, and finally they reach somewhere where there are files, and then they click it open, and maybe it's a Word document, so it opens up. So that again is also analogy of databases, that it holds data, and yeah, you try getting those data. Now, in a typical database that big companies use, what they want to do is basically order the data with regards to each properties. What do I mean by properties? With our previous analogy of a teacher keeping records of the marks that each student gained. In that, um, in that, the table that she would make will be with regards to the name, roll number, marks in that particular subject. So that acts as properties. So the whole point here is that to store information about a particular thing with regards to all the properties can be set up in a table. So as you can see in the screen, the table and columns are there. Table. Yeah, this is the table. These are the columns. And yes, in each rows, we fill in each information. Okay. I hope it's clear so far how a database, what is a database, and how things are stored in the database with regards to however the information might be to be stored. Moving on. Our main focus today is MySQL. Now, MySQL is again a database management system. Now, this is the actual database software kind of thing, if we will, we were talking about. This is the software part, not a physical thing. It's like virtual setup of a database. The file cabinet I was talking about, it's like a virtual setup of it. So what do we mean by SQL? So SQL basically means structured query language. Now the thing here in this database is there will not be just one information stored in the database. There is a huge amount of data stored in it. A lot of data that we physically can't go through. Which is why we needed something that would help us skim through these databases, the information much more quicker and efficiently. And that's what this SQL does. SQL basically manages and manipulates the data. We will see more about how it manipulates and manages the data. But an overall idea about SQL is that it is like a query language. It is a language that we use so that we can work around with the database efficiently. I hope it's clear. You can always put your doubts on the chat, live chat. Okay. Uh, so MySQL, let's recall. MySQL is basically a database, and we use this SQL language to fetch data from MySQL. Fetch in the sense, get the information or data that we want from the database. That's why we use SQL, structured query language. Moving ahead. Okay, so now this is the core of it. Basics of MySQL, how this language works. Um, there are languages like Python, Java, C, and stuff like that. So just like every other language, MySQL also has its own rules and regulations that must be followed. If any of you have coded in Python, or any other languages, I'm sure you guys might have. In that, you must have seen in codes that they follow a particular rule. Like you cannot just write everything at once in one line. You write it one by one, like just like that. That is basically the syntax of it, the rules and regulations that must be followed for a particular language. So this right here is basics, or yeah, basics of MySQL. Information. Oh no, you can just pardon. Um, yeah, you can just think of it as your you can just think of it as a guide on how to start working on with MySQL. Okay, so create database and create table. So there's something called as create keyword in MySQL, and I'll show it to you. Okay, so okay, there's something called as create database. Let's suppose I'm making students, right? So if I do this, it should create a database, right? Um, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, it should create a database, and basically the syntax of it was that create database and database name. As I have written here in the history, you can see that is create database students. So my database name was students here. Yeah, students here. So there is another functionality of that create keyword called create tables. You can use it to create tables too. I hope the create database part is clear. Um, yeah, I hope that okay, create use of create keyword is clear. Another way to use this create keyword is by using it to make tables, because in MySQL there's a particular sequence that one must follow. If you want to store data, first of all, obviously we'll have to make a database, right? Because we need somewhere where we can store data. So that's why we use create database, and whatever name we want to give to the database, we give so. So it can be create database student. So with that way, okay, we have created a new database called students. Now, what does the database need? Data. So before that, how will we put the data? In what order we'll put the data? What properties will the data have? Like the previous analogy that I said, if a teacher wants to store data, she will want to know about the students, the marks, the subject where her marks is highest, etc. That kind of stuff. So for that, we'll create a table, because a table is the best way to visually see and put in data with regards to their properties. So using this create keyword, we can write create table, any table name that you want to give, and with any column name with their particular data type, and how many ever columns you have to give data types with regards to it. And this particular way of writing this is called is basically the syntax or the rules and regulations, the grammar of the language. So you have to follow this. So an example for this can be said that it can be said as create table maths. So if I made maths, then I can say create table maths, and instead of the column name here, I can write roll number, and data type can be integer, int. And the second column name can be student's name, and data type will be varchar. Now, what is this data type? Data type, we can basically say, is that whatever information that we have, it is in a particular format, right? Because numbers, they are called integers. So we need to be able to differentiate between numbers and alphabets, right? So that's why we use integer. We call them as integers. Meanwhile, if it is about A, B, C, D, they are called alphabets. That's why we call them alphabets. So similarly, in computer language, we have something called as data types, just so that we can segregate data. So I mentioned two things, int and varchar. So the int part is basically for the integer, for representing that whatever I'm going to put inside my table will be numbers. Meanwhile, I talked about varchar. That basically indicates that whatever I'm going to put inside my table will be a word or something that is based of alphabets, like sentence or a word. That's what the data types here refer to. I hope it's clear. If you guys have any doubt, you can put it on the chat to clarify. Okay, so moving ahead, insert into. Now this insert is another keyword in MySQL. This right here, let's think about it as I told you that it's a sequential order of storing information in a database, right? So first of all, we make a database, and then secondly, we make a table so that we can store the database. Now, the table needs to have some data inside it, right? So to put inside a data in that table, we use this insert keyword, insert into, and whichever table we want to put the information in. And here, if you guys remember, we made the table students. So we can write insert into students, and whichever columns that are there in that particular table, we made the column roll number and student name. So we write that, and then values, whatever value you want to put, maybe roll number 1 and the name of that roll number, name of that roll number, that student, let's say Ram. So the whole the whole syntax of the whole query will be like insert into student, roll number, comma, student name, values, 1, comma, Ram. That's how this insert into will work. Moving forward to select. Select is one of very important in MySQL, because what's the point of putting inside a data in the table if you can't view the table? So select is how we can actually view the tables. Select star from table name. So if you do select star from students, this will print out everything that is inside of the students table. Inside of the students table. You can, okay. So there's an example, there's another query written here, select star from student where marks greater than 75 and subject equal to math. So what is this? What is this here? So this here is basically a conditional query. Now conditional, why? Is because it's like instead of all the data in that particular database, in that particular table, I want just a particular row with so and so conditions, and I just want to see that only. So here, that's why I've said select star from students, and it will consider the whole table. Now in that table, it will be like, it will check for something, it will check for marks. If there is a marks column in that table, it will check if the marks are greater than 75, and it will also check if the subject is math. Then it will print those columns, print those rows from the table which fulfill this condition. I hope I'm clear. I hope I'm clear about this. If there are any doubts, you guys can ask it on the chat. Okay, so I hope everything is clear. Here we are basically dealing with MySQL specifically. Some of these queries might vary with regards to the compiler that you guys might be using. So moving ahead, update. Now this keyword is basically like, the analogy can be like, you have already set up tables, table student, and you have filled in the marks of that particular student. But that student, let's suppose he goes to the ma'am and he points out some parts that the ma'am might not have corrected, or maybe he says that he negotiated his marks for that question or whatever. Then the ma'am might have increased his marks or decreased, depends on whatever the ma'am's mood might be, right? Anyways, so here one objective is the mark changed. The mark is not same anymore. There are two outcomes. Either the mark increases the mark decreases. So there's a change, right? That's why there's this update keyword that we can use. This update keyword, you use it in such a way that update and whatever table name that you want to do. And there's this particular syntax and syntax in the sense here the set word. Without this, we can't exactly like change data in that particular column of that table. So here it's like update, update, table name, set, marks 67, subject max. So previously it was marks greater than 75 we were looking for, but this can be in a scenario where a guy who tried negotiating thought marks it was reduced by this ma'am. So so the ma'am can put in put in the query update students set marks equal to 67 subject math, and the guy might be roll number 4. So the whole glimpse of this query is that in this students table, I want to set marks 67 for the subject math with condition that the roll number is 4. So what ends up being happening is that after this query is run, after this query is run, when you do select star table, when you do that select star query to print out the whole table, you can see that his roll number 4's marks has been changed. Gets changed. So I hope it's clear. Okay, so this right here is my online SQLite compiler, and we'll try creating table. Let's say students. Okay, column name we can keep marks and int because marks are integers. Name of the student, which can be what's maybe roll number. Not into. And if we run, we can see that this table has been created, and you can see it here that there's a student table here. Now let's insert let's insert data inside the table because we have created a table, right? So insert into what is the table name, students, and what are the things inside the table. Sorry, not things. Column name in the table is marks, name, roll number, and values, because we need to put in the values, right? Values, let's say 45, 5 should be fine. The syntax looks good. Okay, sorry, it needs to be inside quotes because yes, it's so it basically ran. So now when you do Yes, it shows you the table because I only inputted one data. You can see the data here. This is the column marks, name and roll number. And yeah, the marks is 45, RAM and 5. So this is how I basically work around with, yeah, work around with my using SQL in my SQL. Okay, moving ahead. Yep, we're done with update. Yes, moving ahead. Now, there's something called as drop keyword and a delete. So, okay, so this drop statement essentially is for deleting an entire table. Like they both do the same thing. They both, what do you say, permanently remove things, but they are used in separate scenarios. Drop in the sense it drops the entire table. Meanwhile, the delete part is only used for like deleting a particular row of that particular table in that table. So if a student, yeah, in the students table, if a student he basically opts out of that particular subject, then what the teacher will do is basically delete that student's record from the table, right? So there she has to use the delete part. And the drop scenario can be considered in such a way that yeah, the whole class, let's suppose they are fifth graders. My bad. Sorry about that. Yeah. Anyways, so let's suppose that it's a class for fifth graders, right? So if it's a class of fifth graders, after their yearly examination, they will graduate to sixth grade. So why will the teacher need the table of their fifth grade records when they are now sixth graders? So there she will just use the drop keyword, and then the table is just deleted, and then she can just create a new table for her new set of students. So that's what the basic idea of this drop and delete keyword is. I hope the uses of these keywords in MySQL is clear. I hope working around with the tables with these queries is fine. If is there any other doubt, you guys can clarify it in the chat. Okay, so moving ahead, I hope that it's all clear. Now, moving ahead, comments in MySQL. Okay, this is an important part in any kind of programming language. Um, yeah, programming language example is like Python, C, Java. So the whole point of commit is basically to given for the human interpreter, as in it is not interpreted by the computer or the compiler. Okay, so yeah, see, whatever query language we wrote, it was for the compiler or whatever we have play, whatever understanding, whatever executing this query behind the scenes, for them to understand that this is what we require. So with regards to this, use the database, like fetch it from the database. But the whole point of comments is for us, for the human, to understand that what this particular line of query does. So here, select star from people using two hyphens, I can create a comment. With that, it will not create any interference in the code because in the query, because the because it will be considered, it will be regarded as something necessary for the human. Not considered as a query. So yeah, the whole point of comment is basically to keep in these understanding or Easter eggs for the for the human who is reading the code so that they can understand it better. That's the whole point of comments. Yeah, moving forward, order by. So yeah, let's go back to the analogy of our class teacher. Now, she has a table already ready, which contains marks of the students, marks, everything for the students, but it has been ordered with respect to roll numbers. Okay, but the principal asks for the highest marks, and it's basically a class of 100 students or something. 100 students or something. Obviously, it's going to be very difficult to like find out, manually go through everything and like swift through which one is the highest marks. So what she can do is she can basically do select star from students and order by. She can use this order by keyword to order the table. Let's suppose the marks, like I created this table, right? Let's suppose it has like 100 information already filled in, and the marks here right now is in the first column, right? So what the teacher just has to do is she just has to write select star from students, order by 1, because marks is in the first column. And with regards to usually it will get arranged in respect to ascending order because you have not specified anything, and the last most will be the highest marks. Or else there is something called as DESC, that is the keyword used for descending. This keywords and all is basically like nicknames given to long long operations like descending and all. So it's like usually in programming languages you will come across a lot of these nicknames. Even ascending is not written as ascending, rather it's written as AESC, so like that. Similarly for descending, ESC. I hope we are clear with the order by and the comments in MySQL. I hope there are no doubts regarding those two. Moving forward, so union. You might have or might not have come across this union. It's basically a concept in maths, specifically in sets. It's a little too advanced, but the whole idea of union is that if I have a multiple table, let's suppose the teacher by mistake she made 2 tables, and she requires only 1 table. She made 2 tables for one subject itself. So she can use this union keyword to basically combine both these tables. That's what the whole idea of union is, that it combines 2 of the tables together. Like so. We can use this, like this is how you use the union keyword. In this example, it's basically what it means is that it's selecting everything from the employees table, and this union select 1111, this basically indicates that put in this 111 to the table employees 2, because again the whole point of union is to join, is to merge. That's what essentially union does. So but there's one restriction to union. If I write in this particular example, if I write select star from employees, union select 1, 1, I just read that much, it will give me an error. It will not work out. So this is one of the restrictions of using union, that you have to give in similar amounts of input, same as to the number of columns that is the table which is being merged with. Like in the previous image, group A has ID and name. Group B also has ID and name. That's the reason why it was easy for them to merge, because that's the whole ideology behind union. That to merge two tables, you should have same number of columns. I mean, how weird would it be to merge unequal columns, right? Like it will not work out. It will not make sense. That's why there's this restriction to union that if you're trying to if you're trying to merge two tables, they need to have same number of columns as the table that they are trying to merge with. Here in this query, this select statement of 1 comma 1 comma 1, it is being merged to the tables employees. That's why it had to follow this union select statement, had to follow the number of column names that are there in the employees. I hope this restriction part of the union is clear. This is the only thing about it. Yeah, if you have any doubts, feel free to put it on the chats. Okay, continuing forward, we are almost at the end of the PPT. So, web security tools. Um, Before going to that, uh, okay, okay. So we can continue with web security tools. So, web security tools. We will be mainly talking about curl and burp curl and burp suit. Okay, so curl is basically a command line tool. It's like a tool that we use to send HTTP requests. I'm sure in the day one session taken, they talked about the protocols. Sudhanshu talked about protocols, HTTP, HTTPS, and request headers and all. So curl basically is a command line tool. So instead of just using the browser, if you had just the command line, I'll show this right here. This is command line. So if you just had this, how would you get the how will you send or get the request that you're going to put in? So that is where curl can be used. Curl is used for curl. The whole use for curl is this. So let's okay. So I'm gonna do an example curl. Okay, curl HTTPS. Yeah. So what I got here essentially is it printed out the whole HTML of the example.com. I'll show you. Yeah. If I type example.com, it's supposed to be like this, right? It is like this. So when I do curl of this, it basically gives me the skeleton of example.com. It's not very visually visually pleasing or anything, but that's the whole that's what it is. It gives you everything that you need to know, that you would usually get on the browser but on the command line. You can see here this domain is for documentation example. So the same thing you can see here but in HTML style. So the whole HTML of page is basically printed on the command line. That's the use of curl. So with curl, you can send requests that my teammate Sudhanshu taught about in day one, get posts and all that. So yeah, you can do so by just going. It is. It will give you the same result because you're just asking for it, asking for the for example.com. Nothing else. You're not posting any data onto example.com. So it basically gave us the same exact as above, because by default, even if you do curl, it will be in get method. So yeah, and then other ways of using curl is, I'm sure my teammate Sudhanshu must have talked about headers. Yeah, request and response headers. So if you want to like change in a header, you can use this -h. This is called a flag, and using this you can just write, let's suppose, content type. So, my bad. Like this, and then write whatever URL you want to send this particular curl request to. So yeah, this mainly is one of the ways, and there are many other flags that we use. There's this p flag here which we use for changing cookies and all, like sending a particular type of cookie, which particular cookie onto that website. Yeah, it is. That's basically how curl is used. And then there is Burpsuit. Now, Burpsuit is basically an application, a web application. This we basically use for testing. I hope it is clear so far. Yeah, so moving on to Burpsuit. Burpsuit is a web application, and the whole point of Burpsuit is testing out vulnerabilities. So it basically, this is what Burpsuit is like, and I'll do open browser. So it opens a separate browser. Before demonstrating, I'll tell you what Burpsuit is. So Burpsuit basically is acting like as of a proxy. Now, what do we mean by a proxy? Normally, when you Google something, you just type in and the request just goes in and you get the response, right? I hope you guys know what request and response is. It must have been taught by Sudhanshu. Yeah. So, yeah. Anyways, so basically, using this Burpsuit is basically like a middleman. Burpsuit acts like a middleman. What does that mean? It's like I said, Google, when you type something, you just send the request and you get in the response. That's that, right? But when you use Burpsuit, what exactly happens is you send this request and the Burpsuit holds it off. It holds it off, and it basically holds it off, and you can basically change whatever you send through, or change whatever headers you can while sending the request, and then send it and then send it to the server to get processed, and then you will get the response back. So you can essentially say that proxy acts like a middleman, and you can basically ask that middleman to do your change stuff, stuff in that request that you're sending through, and it will then send it to the server, and according to that you'll get a response. For example, here I switch on this intercept, and basically what I do is I'm just doing example.com. You can see that it keeps on loading. That's because okay. sorry about that. So, yeah, you can see that it keeps on loading. It does not actually, oh wait, yeah, it does not actually like go through. It does not actually like immediately show you google.com how it would generally show you. Because if I do google.com here on my normal browser, I will get Google directly, right? But you can see here that in this particular, yeah, okay, in this particular browser you do not get it. That's the basically proxy part. So it basically catches that request and you can send it to repeater using control R. And yeah, once you send it to the repeater, you can manipulate, no, not just, sorry, not manipulate. You can tamper around with this particular request by adding in any kind of adding in any request header or like any kind of data that you want to send in, and then send it back and you'll get the response. Yeah, this one is this one, okay. Yeah, this one is the right one. Okay, I'll send this to the repeater, and yeah, if you just send it. Uh, Bye bye, it's fine. Yeah, so I hope you understand the idea about verb suit, behind verb suit, what it works with, like how it is, how we work around with verb suit. Yeah, verb suit is basically a proxy. Yeah, basically a proxy that helps us and tamper around with the request that we have sent. You can change your IP or cookies or whatever you want to before sending the request. And yeah, that is very useful when trying to exploit vulnerabilities. I hope it's clear so far, and if there are any doubts, you can just address it in the chat. Yeah, and well, that's that. This was our session, and I want to address that there is we have InCTF Yeah, InCTF is going to be on 13th of December. The InCTF calls will be on 13th of December, and you can just type in InCTF on Google, and the first link that you see is basically will be redirected to InCTF website. You can join the Discord here for any kind of any new notifications that you will get with regards to the competition. Join the Telegram, and you can get started. There's all the practice challenges up and all the materials that you can use to practice with and gain knowledge about. Uh, yeah, happy hacking, and thank you for joining the session. If you guys have any doubts, you can still address it now. We'll wait for like 2-3 minutes. If you guys have any doubts, you can put it up on the chat. I guess it's all clear now, and we'll wrap up the session. Thank you all for joining. Do play the NCTJ calls on 13th December.